Next, I would like to invite Tendai Stephano, the Chief Executive Officer of Afro Global Trade Limited, UK.
Thank you very much for having me at this prestigious event, where I'm meeting people of all walks of life from different cultures. And I also want to start by highlighting that GCPIT is doing a very good job by being inclusive and very diverse, because on this platform, like some of the speakers have been saying, we are seeing people from different parts of the world, which is very much encouraging, especially when it comes to doing business. And moving forward, I would like to thank my colleagues who I work with, and we work in a very complex environment. And I believe some of the awardees who are here today who agree with me that it's not easy working in the emerging markets, considering the constraints and the limited resources that are available, and also the resistance because of lack of knowledge of what we'll be trying to communicate. Because I'll give an example. Many a times I've been called an agent of the West, simply because I tried to communicate something to a politician who didn't understand where I was coming from. And I never got angry with them. It was because I felt that he didn't understand. It's because he looked back at history. Most of these emerging markets used to be colonies. So the moment you start talking business, they start thinking, oh, that's an agent who's bringing recolonization, which is still a perception amongst other people from Africa, especially in the political space. But our role as emerging leaders is to change that perception and bring in a new ideology that we live in a global village, whereby everyone is entitled to opportunities and to engage freely and actually come up with sustainable solutions that can change the world. And that being said, we have issues that can sound controversial, but sometimes I feel this is the right platform to mention them. We have the United Nations. They are always talking about global goals, eradicating poverty and hunger. And when we think of hunger and poverty, obviously the most affected continents are the emerging markets. But on the other hand, we have investors. When you approach them with projects that need investment, they are looking for bankable projects, which is quite a challenge. I've attended many webinars when people talk about there is a lot of funding available in the world to change the world, but nobody addresses the vacuum that investors are looking for something that is bankable. The emerging world cannot afford to get a project bankable, and nobody wants to address this vacuum. So I urge you all emerging leaders to actually look into this narrative and also come up with solutions, because I believe on this platform, we've got great thinkers and we've got great innovators who can come up with solutions. Because in business, I believe to be a great leader, you have to have character, you have to have integrity, and you have to be able to motivate. And also, you are not supposed to be selective as a great leader, but you have to be inclusive and ensure that everyone actually benefits from what you do. Because gone are the days of using charisma. We have a lot of leaders, especially on the political space, who believe in charisma. They say something today for clout, and they go away and do something totally different for self-gratification. And at the same time, they promise the same people something very positive so that they remain relevant. But as great as aspiring leaders, I urge you all to work to to actually walk to walk the path of what you say. You have to, your words should be your life. And I would like to quote one of the great people who inspires me. That's Kota, who is a specialist in change management. Kota is always talking about winning hearts and minds. But when you win hearts and minds, you don't have to coerce. You have to deliver change in an effective way that is sustainable, that can actually make the world a better place. So with that being said, I would like to thank my team that I've been working with. And it hasn't been an easy road. And I know now that I have got this award, I don't see it as a personal award, but I see it as a challenge for me to excel in the things that I'm doing, to try and find solutions to create a better world in the future. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Tendai, and congratulations to you on winning the award. Next, I would like.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you are joining us from. Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, or GCPAT, proudly welcome you all to this special interview series in connection with the Global Emerging Leaders Awards 2022. I'm Aparna G. Kumar, the Global Co-Chairperson of GCPAT and your host for the show. Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade is an organization based in India, South Africa, US, UK, and UAE, with board and council member representation across the world. We at GCPAT believe in fostering leadership across different levels. Recently, we have been reflecting on the significance of perspective in our role as leaders. When we advance from being an individual contributor to a leader, our perspective starts changing. We gain access to new information, have conversations with new people, and think about things in ways we didn't have to before. These changes or learnings have immense power, and we believe that this interview series will help us and many aspiring future leaders to gain new perspectives, especially global perspectives from these emerging leaders. Today, we have with us such a leader to tell us about his perspectives on leadership while leading his venture. We have with us Mr. Tendai Stephano, who is the founder and CEO of Afro Global Trade Limited, and his aim is to reduce poverty in Africa through capacity building. The vision of the business is anchored in building sustainable partnerships, SPVs, collaborations, investment advisory, coaching, and attracting investment to Africa. He is also an advocate for poverty reduction and climate control, and he has a strong belief in value creation in Africa. He is passionate in being the voice of the voiceless through communicating opportunities in Africa and identifying partners that are genuinely interested in the development of Africa and upholding the Sustainable Development Goals as outlined by the United Nations. He strongly believes that every human being, regardless of gender or race, is entitled to a decent life and freedom to live the life they want. He is a resilient leader who fights for the good causes that build an autonomous world. He's an investment advisor, trade consultant, coach, and public speaker, specializing in businesses and opportunities in the emerging markets. Congratulations, Mr. Tendai Stephano, for being nominated for the Emerging Leaders Awards. We are proud to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Aparna. Is that, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Perfectly.
Is it Aparna or Aparna?
Aparna, yes, Aparna.
Aparna, okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we know that you are a proactive leader with vast knowledge of the African trade and investment markets, and you offer corporate advisory services to organizations willing to tap into the fast-growing African markets. So before we begin talking about leadership, I would like to ask you, where did all this begin? What is your background and what you're currently doing?
Okay, I could start by talking about my background. I was born in Zimbabwe, and during that time, I was born during the colonial era, and things were different then when Zimbabwe used to be a colony. Then I fast forward to that, I relocated to the UK. But whilst I was in Zimbabwe, I started working on small projects. Some were government-led projects, and including the transition of the education system. That was the localization of exams in Zimbabwe from Cambridge University to ZIMSEC. Then after working on that project, I never turned back in trying to give my services to the next to people in Africa, because I thought the best way to empower fellow Africans is to also lead them and assist them to achieve what they desire. Then when I moved into the UK, I incorporated my business. I incorporated a few businesses along the line. Then in 2017, when England was coming out of the European Union, I incorporated a company called Afro Global Trade Limited. The purpose of Afro Global Trade Limited was for re-engagement. To actually, it started off as a company that would work with the UK and Africa, because it's in the former colonies, if I may say. But I discovered that there was actually demand that we could actually go global. So we didn't think of going global on the onset, but it was something that came along the line. Then we started working with stakeholders in Africa, because we discovered that in Africa, there was a huge challenge in terms of the level of how politics interferes with business. Although I don't want to touch much on the political side, but geopolitics was actually playing in on how business was working in Africa. And that was having a huge negative impact. There was advantages and disadvantages, whereby business leaders were being overshadowed by the politicians and in the decision-making process, which has led to some economies being where they are, if I can say it in a nicer way. And so we thought, as an African, I thought it was my duty with other Africans to fight to restore and empower our own people. And so by trying to educate people of how to people about how to engage globally using the internationally accepted techniques, and also implementing things that actually were sustainable and that actually works to bring the market back into life. That is how I started off. It was not, I can say it wasn't an easy road, because there's a lot of interference sometimes, especially, as you know, in the emerging markets, the biggest problem is corruption. So if you are teaching people to do the right thing, you will create enemies along the lines, especially those people who don't want things to be done diligently. But I stood resilient over the years, and I've been getting buy-ins, and I built a team. In my team, I'm proud to say I got, in the main team, I got people from Botswana and some consultants from all over Africa. And I also have a partner from India. You can see on our Afro Global website. So our role is to try and to empower the producers, the people who are on the ground. And we started off with agriculture, whereby we discovered that people who were growing agricultural products were not realizing what they deserved, because other people, the middlemen, were actually taking over, and the farmers were losing interest. That's where we came in to try to assist producers to be competitive on the global market. And we know on the global market, there is a lot of constraints. They have to be accredited. You have certain certificates to be accepted in certain markets. So we started getting on a journey to try and engage the people and try to assist them to become certified and to get all what is required, so that they can also be competitive and also be prosperous on the international markets. It wasn't an easy journey, like I said earlier, because it involved, there was a bit of resistance of saying, you obviously, when you're coming up with a good cause, you get people calling you names and all that, but that didn't deter me because I was determined because I had my vision to empower fellow Africans. So over the years, I can say, yes, we've been getting buy-ins, and then we also got into another dimension of investment advisory, because in investment, there was a misconception, especially with a lot of project owners within the African space, so that they think if they pick of a project, they must get an investor, not knowing that there are processes that you have to go through, developing the project and getting it to certain standards that meet the requirements of the investors. Like nowadays, I can quote, you have things like ESG, we have things like bankable projects. This was new to a lot of Africans to see how can you get your project from inception, a greenfield project from inception to bankable stages. So we started giving advisory services on how you can structure a project to try and get it more competitive so that you can actually attract investment. And over the years, we've been trying to, it's not only Africa only, it's also, we look at the developed world, that they should also understand the capacity of Africa and what is required to bridge the gap, because we've noticed there is a gap which is never discussed, because you get investors, they come forward and say they want bankable projects, but do they understand whether Africa has the capacity or the knowledge of getting projects bankable? So we got involved into knowledge transfer, capacity building, and coaching other Africans as well, and also creating awareness to the world of what's available in Africa, what can be done in Africa, how to engage in Africa. So in recent years, yes, I can say we are now getting recognition. And I can also point out that I'm so happy to be recognized by the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade. That shows that our work, which we're doing, is having a bit of impact. I can say slow but sure, we are getting there. And you look at issues of climate change. This is a huge challenge in the emerging markets, which we have discovered that as a business, we should make people cognizant of what is climate change, what is the impact, who does it impact, because as you are aware, climate change has got no borders. It affects the whole world. So so we found it that it's better to start doing it, to start preparing now than to wait for the 11th hour, when countries will start to rush around thinking, oh, climate change is coming, because there is no one who's going to come and ring a bell and say, oh, hold on, climate change is coming, like what happened to the recent pandemic, whereby it was on the news that there is corona, you should do this. But with climate change, people has to have the knowledge and how to do things differently and how to minimize the waste. So this is where we come in as well, to try and work with businesses to reduce their carbon footprint for the betterment of the world. And whilst we're still there, there is a bit of challenges which we're still fighting. We attend international events, trying to also negotiate and create an environment that works well for Africa. For instance, you look at clean energy. Like I said before, investors expect projects to be at a certain stage. But then again, we also now engaging deep divers who can go into the market, work with stakeholders from inception to try and to develop a project that can actually be implemented in a manner that will actually benefit the continent. And we see there is a lot of capacity in Africa, but and very high potential. But the challenge is a lot of people don't know about Africa. For instance, I live in the UK. If I'm to walk down the road and ask somebody, what do you think of Africa? They'll tell you, oh, it's somewhere where we can go on a holiday to go and see animals, because that's what they've been told. That's what media is portrayed to them. Yes, we can say media is good, but media has got its own disadvantages because it shows what the media, what the person behind the camera wants to see. And sometimes that can be that information can be misrepresented by video editing. So by creating that awareness, we are actually bridging the global gap and actually making it easier and simpler for people to understand what happens on the other side of the world and what is needed and what are the benefits. For instance, in recent years, normally I try to avoid to get into the politics of things, but then again, if you are in business, you cannot avoid talking about the politics of things. I can say, if we look back in the last 2 years, South America, which is Brazil and other countries which was normally the breadbasket of the world, they have been impacted by a heavy drought, which means the production of food has been reduced. And we look at the war in Russia and Ukraine, has had another impact as well on the food supply chain industry, because a lot of food is produced from Ukraine, but because of what's happening now, it is creating shortages. Then we look at Africa. Africa has got the best climate, arable land, and the only thing that Africa doesn't have is capabilities, which is the technology, the finances to actually kickstart agriculture projects and get them, and also the knowledge. They don't have the technical know-how as well of how to produce international standard agriculture products. So this is where we come in to try and create awareness, because we discover that awareness is very important, because sometimes when you live in a vacuum, all you know is what's surrounding you. Sometimes you might think, oh, how come let's say for instance, we grow tomatoes and 50% of our tomatoes are going to waste. We are not getting people buying our tomatoes, but it's only a simple thing that is required, the compliance. So we're trying to educate people about compliance and how to create a roadmap to get on the international market. And also we are engaging buyers to say there is an opportunity in Africa. You can actually do contract farming. You can actually get into manufacturing in Africa. People in Africa are not that backward, but all they lack is the technology and the capabilities. So if you empower them with capabilities, they can also help the world. So there is quite a lot that we do as a business.
I think that's an amazing job you are doing. And as you said, when you're going to the global market, you face a lot of challenges. And in your journey, you might have learned a lot as well, right, in your leadership journey. So if you had to pick 4 or 5 words or short phrases to describe how a successful leader in a global environment operates or behaves, what would they be?
Well, the phrases that could be, the first thing is, you must be aware that change is always there. Things are always changing in the world. So you must be able to adapt to, and so being adaptive, and also you must be very resilient. And when you're working with buckets like Africa, you must be a very patient person, because sometimes you face resistance from other people who benefit from a system that is functioning in a way that is not transparent. And you also have to be somebody who is a very good motivator, because people have to believe you, and you have to stick by your word. And you have to be somebody who's very influential when you talk to your people, and you have to put your foot down and say, this is what is required, and also be able to change people's mindsets. Because remember, people still have that hangover of colonization. So if they think international markets, they'll be thinking, oh, these people are trying to bring the colonizers again. But this is a different ballgame which we are now playing. It's about working as equal partners, not bringing people to take over, but to come and negotiate and meet halfway. So so you should have negotiating skills as well, and to create balance. That's another phrase which I could put as well.
Great.
And
And how would you describe?
stakeholders.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that. And how would you describe the differences in organization and culture between a global environment and a more local or regional environment?
Well, there is a lot that you look at. In my view, I would say when you're looking at the macro environment, you look at the macro environment, it depends on what level do you want to look at. And one of the best tools which have worked for me as a leader is using the Pestel framework, because you look at the politics in India and the politics in the UK and the politics in Africa are different. The economy in England, I'm just breaking down the whole framework of Pestel. The economy in Africa, the economy in a different continent is different. So you have to understand how you can benefit, how you can create opportunities within the economy, and also the social structure of the environment which you operate in. If it's between two continents, you have to identify how they can coexist. And also there's technology. In certain parts of the world, there's technology still backwards, and in other parts of the world, which are developed, technologies at a higher level. So you have to try and see how you can bring in, how you can dampen down things, and also get technology in the emerging markets to be on the same level in the developed as it is in the developed world, because that is very important in terms of communication and other engagements. And we also look at the things like the legal systems, because there are things like patents and all those kind of things. So those are things that have to come into place, and how they relate, and how governments, also the government legislature or government legislatures of different countries in different continents, and how they can actually work together autonomously in creating an environment that is good for business. And also, in terms of culture, you have to understand sometimes how cultures differ. And we have been using tools like the culture web and all that to try and understand what's the position of this market, and what are the drivers or levers that are needed to be pulled to actually change that, to transform that market to the certain standards, which we believe is the standard global standard. So it's about the pros and cons within the market, which you try to adjust to get to a certain level, which I could say is understood by the international market. So it's dealing with a lot of things within that, all the dynamics and all the challenges, and how you mitigate risk, and to try and create an autonomous culture that can work for all. Because if culture is different, sometimes it can bring some misconceptions. So he's trying to bring down everything in one basket from different silos, and to bring them in one basket and try to make them into a centrifuge that is sustainable.
Initially, your company was focusing on reducing poverty and SDGs. And how was it, the purpose evolving now?
Say again, sorry, I missed the last bit.
No, you said you were initially when you started the company, you were focusing on reducing poverty and SDGs, right? Sustainable Development Goals. So how is
Yes,
your
correct,
company's
yes.
purpose evolving?
Now our purpose is I can say we have joined the deep divers revolution, whereby we are engaging people from grassroots. And I could give an example. Our company recently, we have merged with an organization in Mozambique. As you are aware that in Mozambique, there's been a lot of devastating natural disasters in recent years. And there is a program which has been started now whereby they want to see how they can mitigate risk of these climate issues that has been hard hitting the country. So they set up an organization called ATAT Mozambique, whereby they are trying to engage international stakeholders. And I'm proud to say our company, Afro Global Trade Limited, is actually working as the publicity department to try and engage the international stakeholders to get into Mozambique to work on the climate issues in Mozambique. And that is one of the other things that we're doing. On the other hand, we are also working with companies that are set in Africa that are involved in renewable energy. We've been working with them, trying to structure projects whereby we can work with them to try to connect them to build SPVs with the right investors so that they can actually harvest the renewable energy, which is all over Africa, but which is being underutilized. So I could say it's about being commercially aware and also understanding what's happening within the world. For instance, after the pandemic, a lot of things have changed, and we are trying to promote the use of technology within the African continent because I could say during the pandemic, Africa was at a shutdown, because they didn't use a lot of technology. But we discovered that with technology, with or not people going in the office, going to the office every day, with the right technology, you can continue working and actually achieve your goals. So we are promoting people getting into technology and creating awareness of the importance of how technology can actually make things more easier on a global space.
Thank you for sharing that. Actually, my next question was, how should companies approach digitization? So what do you think how are the companies how are the companies going towards digitization, and what is your role? Like, you are creating awareness, you said, right?
With technology, there is a lot of things because you have to have a sustainable environment to begin with. With technology, for instance, you need electricity for most of these technologies, some of these technologies to work. Although not every technology, but if you're talking of digital technology, it needs electricity. So it is important that all businesses should have access to adequate electricity to begin with, if they are using digital technology, because that is the medium that can actually promote, that is the carrier which can be used, because if you want to use the internet, you have to have electricity. If you don't have electricity, and we have other things like Wi-Fi. The coverage of Wi-Fi is very important as well in countries, because you used to have countries whereby maybe Wi-Fi was not an important thing. But now people are now realizing that Wi-Fi is actually important in business because it makes communication easier, because companies within different parts of the world can easily coexist and share ideas and technologies and other things when they are all operating on the digital space. And in some countries where corruption is a problem, when you use digital technology, it's easier. For instance, if we are encouraging countries to get into e-tendering, it also creates opportunities, not only for the countries in Africa, but also international stakeholders can actually go on their computers and they can log in, they can see, oh, maybe in India or in Zambia, in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, in Nigeria, whatever country, there is these tenders going on. They can go on the internet and easily do it. So I can say the digital technology makes things more efficient and easy and bring people closer, regardless of their location. Because when you go digital, you become, I could say you become global because you can reach all corners of the world when you implement it. So it is very, very good. And it also helps people in different areas to adapt to new technologies quicker. Because when you're doing things digitally, it's quicker for you to learn new things and to know what's happening in other continents.
Right. And what was the most challenging difference in leadership or culture that you had to understand and overcome in a globalized economy?
I could say the biggest challenge, I could talk of the market which I know the most, which is Africa. It's a misconception, especially from if you are dealing with countries that are militarized. You know, countries gain independence differently. So the countries that are military-led are very difficult to deal with because all the decisions are made by the military. But from history, we know that military and business, they do not coexist in a more viable manner. That is my view because I've seen it happen that in some countries, you can talk of country X, I think, because I'm trying to be politically correct as much as I can be politically correct so that I cannot be misquoted. They might think country X used to be our colonizer back in the day, and country Z helped us to get independence. So the allegiance for that country will be country Z, the one that helped them to liberate themselves. But then again, they forget that in business, it doesn't work out like that because sometimes there has to be balance. Yes, we understand that you cannot, there is an element of legacy of people thinking of things that has happened in the past. But we are always trying to make people understand what the future holds because we are past, we cannot keep going back on what happened 20 years back because that can have a negative impact on development and actually uniting the world because what we wish for is a united world that can work autonomously and share ideas, technologies, and work together and actually augment each other because each continent has got its strengths. For instance, we're getting into the electric vehicle revolution, whereby it will not, most of the minerals that are required in that industry do come from Africa, the raw materials. And the technology is coming from the developed world. So for both to coexist, there has to be a platform whereby they have to forget about the politics of things, of their history, and look at the future of how to save the world, because going green is not, it doesn't, like I said earlier, going green does not have borders. Going green is universal. So we are trying to create a universal culture, which has got no divisions, because the biggest problem that we are fighting now is the biggest problem that we're fighting now is the reducing carbon footprint. And we're also trying to encourage other countries that are still into coal mining about the impact of using coal. But the reason why some of these countries will not let go is because they cannot fund the transition from fuels. So that's where we come in to try and also go back to the people who are creating this message to say, yes, you might want Africa to get into this, but Africa does not have capability, does not have the funding, does not have the technology. So how can you assist and how can you create short wins? Because people do want to see short wins. If you tell them by word of mouth, or if you don't show action on your word, people will not believe. They will do things that work for them. And also, we have noticed that in some parts of the world, they're quite comfortable in waking up in the morning, they go in the bush, cut trees, go back home and cook. This is something that we are trying to change, to say, no, trees are not for fuel for cooking, but trees, you should preserve trees. But how do you do that? That means you have to borrow technology from other parts of the world and find the cheapest technology that can replace firewood in cooking. So there is a lot. And also the biggest challenge is to try to get buy-ins, because there's always barriers. If you try to get into any market, there's always barriers. So we try to use ways of trying to negotiate our way into those markets and try to make them understand the benefit. And like I said, the most difficult countries are the ones which are militarized, because they always have this paranoia that maybe this is soft politics and people are trying to get into their countries using the back door. But we try to reassure them that it's all about saving the world.
It's amazing to know how you're focusing on the sustainable development goals, especially working towards climate change. And as you said, it's really difficult when you get into the business thing, and it's really difficult to make people understand, right? So what different perspectives do you bring to the business as a leader? With all these global
The difference, what I do is, I think in most cases, I leverage on my soft skills and my understanding of, I can call it a privilege, because I've lived in both worlds, the emerging markets and the developed world. So I do understand that there is a vacuum, imaginary vacuum that people don't know. So what the value that I bring in is to try and also make the people in the developed world understand the challenges that are in the emerging world and how they can be, and how they can create an autonomous environment, or how they can break into the market and also benefit from the opportunities. And also, I go to the emerging markets and try to create awareness of the opportunities that are in the developed world and the importance of actually adopting new things. As you know, people don't like to be changed. Although they like to see change, they like good things, but they don't like to be changed. So it is very challenging and daunting, but we have to try and make people see the bigger picture.
I totally agree. As you said, people don't like to be changed. So what advice would you like to give someone who has taken a senior leadership role to be more impactful in the role they have taken up?
I could say they have to be, the biggest thing they should have, they have to have a big heart, because it's not an easy road, because it's not black and white, because people will not, people are not like sponges, whereby if you know something, if you put water, you put a sponge, it sucks all the water in just like that, and you can squeeze it in a different place and have the water come out. It doesn't work like that. So you have to be a bit, I cannot say cohesive, but you should have negotiating skills and try to make people understand and sell the benefits, not the product. And to all the emerging leaders, I would say it's always best to see what is the benefit. Make sure that people understand the benefit before the product, And also, if there is a way of creating short wins, because people don't want to be told things for you to go on telling them things over and over again when they don't see the benefits. So, for instance, if you are dealing on something that is long term, create a little bit of incentives that are short term, that they can see, that they can, oh, these things do work. It's just like people who go to, I don't want to get into these things, but there is every market has got its different behavior. I've noticed in Africa, there's a culture that has been springing up, which I can use to back up what I'm trying to explain, although it's not relevant at the moment because it's to do with religion. There's been a new type of religion in Africa, which they call prosperity religion, where they believe in miracles, where they get prophets, they come, whether it's miracles or not. I don't want to get into that because that's not my area. But those I've observed, I've been watching that kind of religion from a distance, and I've discovered that a lot of people are actually getting reeled in easier into that religion because they want to see miracles quick. They want to see the quick wins. The miracles are the quick wins. So in business, if you are a new leader, you have to implement that kind of leadership, whereby we have in markets like the emerging markets, for instance, Africa, which is the market we focus on, the people are more interested in quick wins. That has been proven in this prosperity gospel, which has just started in recent years in Africa, which is getting a lot of buy-ins. Almost everyone believes that you join this group, you'll be a millionaire in 2 years. And I don't ask me how many millionaires have been made by that sort of belief, but it has taken the whole continent by storm. But then again, it's all about taking the concept and using that in business also to win heart and minds, because that's a very important thing.
As you have been sharing, there are a lot of challenges when you enter the global market. And are there any training or resources such as coaching? I know you are doing a lot to support new business and to help you be better. What was your experience? Did you have any training? Did you undergo any training, or did you have any coaches or mentors to help you be better? Or is it just a lot of practice?
Well, it doesn't take practice. Like they always say, you learn from others. I'm always constantly attending international webinars. And I would like to, I'm not advertising for this platform, but I would say GCPIT, you have been reading through your website as well, which is very good. In the UK, we have what we call the Financial Times. They do have a lot of webinars, and now they've been also post-COVID, things have changed, that they're now trying to go global. Maybe it's because to try and support the Brexit agenda in the UK. They've been trying to embrace all continents in their webinars, and they are very, very, very good. I learned a lot of things because there will be business leaders there, and there will be disruptors, innovators. So by attending these webinars, you learn. You get to. It helps me to become on top of my game and to be commercially aware and understand where the world is heading to, and also try and borrow some of the good things that I see and try to get to introduce them to my market. So if you are a new leader trying to get into the global space, you have to be innovative. You have to have an open mind, because you are bound to be rejected. That's rule number one. It's not everyone who will accept what you're doing, no matter how good it is. So you should be somebody who is able to take rejection, and somebody who's very, very resourceful, and somebody who's widely read, and somebody who's always trying to learn new things and get to see the dynamics of things and try to be a problem solver. Because as a leader, the biggest thing is to solve problems. And what other thing I would say is, people, when you are leading them, there's a difference between people mistake leading and managing people. People don't like to be managed. If you are leading them, you just have to motivate them, keep them motivated, coach them, and propose to things that can steer them in the right direction. And so if you do things methodically, people will start listening to what you are trying, the message which you're trying to deliver.
So are these webinars and or resources you mentioned available to the broader leadership team within the ecosystem itself?
Yes, they are available because I do attend. And the good thing about these webinars, you meet a lot of people from all over the world. It's not only Africa, you meet people from the US, you meet people from India, you meet people from China. So that's how you build relationships. And also we shouldn't forget one of the biggest business platform, which is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is actually quite good because you get to interact with like-minded people, share ideas, and also learn new things. So there is quite, I could say, being a leader is multidimensional.
We all have been going through the pandemic, and we all have been affected by that. What have you learned from leading in this crisis?
Leading in the crisis, I've learned one thing, that people need to prepare for the unknown. People have to be because the world which we are living in, anything can happen. And when you are not aware, and people have to have an open mind in trying to adapt quickly, because I'm not wishing for another pandemic to come, but because this has been a lesson learned that you shouldn't be very complacent. You should keep on thinking of the alternatives and thinking of what if this happens, what do I do? Always be on the lookout of how to protect yourself as a business, to say, always try to be very innovative and very resourceful, and also be ahead of the game. That's all I can say. And especially to be adaptive is very, very good, because we do have global leaders who steer us in the right direction. So it's always good to follow those leaders. And if something, and even if I know people talk, like nowadays, we hear people talking of artificial intelligence, big data, and all that. If you go to the emerging markets, there are some people who still believe that's for Europe, that's for the US. But believe me not, that's a global thing. Within the next 10, 20 years, it will be universal. So the time is now to start to getting into things like big data, artificial intelligence, and all that, because the world where we're heading to, we are heading into I could say into a digital world, whereby people can do things from anywhere in the world. And thank God that we have all the resources. We have internet, which is widely available. Unlike if we go back 50 years backwards, the world was not interconnected the way it is. So let's utilize technology to remain in touch with the rest of the world. That will also help in a pandemic, because you know where to start from.
And how do you promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace as a leader?
It is, I could say, me as a leader, I always feel everyone is important in their own right. And one thing I know, people like to be listened, even if what they are saying does not make sense to you, but give them time to explain how they feel, maybe out of what they are saying, because everyone has an idea. Maybe the whole idea might not make sense, but you might pick one or two things that you can add to other things that can actually help them change. So as a leader, if you deal with people from different walks of life, you learn a lot of things, because we didn't start as human beings. We didn't start as advanced as some of our people are. We all started at a certain stage, and we evolved differently depending on the environment where we operate from. So it is very important to also try to include other people who are still backward, to try and assist them to get to a point which is acceptable internationally, because on a global village, it's not a competition, but it's trying to find ways of standardizing things. And if things are standardized, it makes it easier for everyone because if people are operating on the same trajectory, it's very easy to have the global world functioning properly.
And what advice would you like to give entrepreneurs who are dreaming to be successful in the global market? This would be my last question.
The advice which I would give is not an easy road, but you have to be very resilient, and you have to keep on building relations, because peer-to-peer learning is very important. And the biggest thing I would want to encourage new leaders is don't be afraid of rejection, because in any business environment, you are going to be rejected maybe 95% of the times. But that 5% that you get accepted will go a long way. So it's about having a thick skin, basically.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tendai Stephano, for joining us today and enlightening us with your thoughts and experiences. As you said, change is always there, and always be adaptive, be resilient. And as a global leader, people need to trust you, always stand by your word, keep building relations, motivate people, and don't be afraid of rejection. And be resourceful, be widely read, be ready to adapt to change. Thank you so much. We hope this would be helpful to many aspiring future leaders to gain new perspectives and climb the success ladder. Looking forward to associating with you in the future as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Apama. And I would want to, before I leave, I would like to say Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade is doing an amazing work. And please continue doing what you're doing. Yes, it is a long journey, but we'll get there. The globalization will not happen within a day. It is a process, but then again, with time, we will realize the fruits of what you are doing. And I thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Actually, we are on a mission to impact the lives of 100 million entrepreneurs with Impact Mission 2030. We would like to invite you to join us and be part of this game-changing mission. And I request all the audience to join us as we build a global community of great leaders from 190 plus countries by 2030. You can contact us through mail, or you can find us on all social media as GCPIT Global, or you can send a mail to contact@gcpit.us. Join us as we come back with another emerging leader to inspire us and share their perspective on global leadership. Till then, this is Aparna Ji Kumar signing off. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So much.